The project for today is to build these side tables. They're built out of some square stock and some L-channel that's used for the base to add a little bit of weight. I get the process started by cutting all of the different pieces to size that I need. I subsequently learned that cutting several pieces at the same time when doing these 45-degree angles is not a good idea because they're not all equally tightly clamped. And so, if one of the pieces is looser than the others, it's prone to getting spit out by the saw. This happened to me, and I ended up with pieces of metal flying across the room and tore up one of my saw blades and even cracked the base of my saw. So now, whenever I'm cutting those 45-degree pieces, I'm careful to make sure that they're all very tightly clamped, or I don't do things together at the same time. I just cut them individually. So since I don't have a welding fixture table, I'm just using my normal bench top to put all this together. I sort of put a couple of pieces of plywood down to build a 45-degree jig. And the problem with that, of course, is that as you are putting all that heat into the metal, you're also starting to burn away into that wood. So not an ideal situation. Once I got done with the rest of the angles, then I started putting together this base here. So I'm using this heavier L angle material that is really meant to make the center of gravity on the side tables a little bit heavier. So trying to add some weight down close to the floor. I also considered adding some, just solid chunks of metal here, but didn't find that I really needed to. So here's the bases as I was preparing to weld them, getting all of the pieces together, and then I take it in the house and have a look and see how it fits with the couch, just to make sure that none of my measurements were off or I didn't need to make any adjustments before I finally put it all together. So this is me just trying it out in the living room while it's still just clamped together, and then back to the garage so that I can get everything finally all put together. So at this point, I sort of hit a hurdle. As I was mentioning, I put this all together without having a fixture table. And when you're using the sort of square stock like this that's really thin, it's even more prone towards warping and bending and that sort of thing. So I found that once I had put this all together, the actual tabletop surface wasn't flat or parallel with the ground. So I kind of put it aside for a little while and just went on to work on other things, and then finally came back and found that I had to break some of the welds and then kind of go about re-welding some of these brackets, these 45-degree angles, while having the table put into a little bit of suspension or tension so that I could keep things at a proper 90-degree angle for the corners and such. In the end, I was able to get everything at the right angles and such, but it took a little bit of hammering around and working on it to get it to come together the way I wanted it to. So once the structure was in place, then I painted it with self-etching primer, followed by a couple of coats of metallic gray, and then I built a countertop surface for it out of Baltic birch and coated it with Duratex. I was going to do some epoxy on the surface of the countertop, but I found that the Duratex was so slick that the epoxy just sort of washed right off of it. So ended up having to wipe all that down, sand it down, and then repaint the Duratex. Duratex is a type of surface coating paint that is used for a lot of speakers and that sort of thing, and it's really good at resisting water and all kinds of dings and scratches and such, which is why I went for that. You can see the white here, the Duratex white that I have on this. Here's some final shots of how the side tables turned out. Overall, I was pretty pleased with the project. Again, working with this square stock, this is one of the first few projects I had done trying to use these sort of materials. The weight of the base turned out to work pretty good in terms of the low center of gravity. The Duratex paint was a nice surface for the tops, and overall was pretty pleased with the way that they turned out, and they fit nicely with the couches and chairs in the living room.